All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to today's Platform Academy session. I'm very excited because new release, new content, new features. It's always exciting to be able to talk to you finally about the new and great content that we put in our different products on the Now platform with every family release. This session today, we are talking about the Vancouver release. Finally, actually, my Vancouver release shirt arrived just in time, perfect for this session today. So I am very happy about this. The timing couldn't be better. I am very glad to be joined by my friend Paige. It is so awesome to see you again. We'll do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get right into it. So please give a quick intro to yourself.
Sure, thanks. All right, so I am Paige Duffey. I am a product success manager here at ServiceNow. I've been here for about a year and a half. In fact, I got to do one of these with you a year ago for not Utah, the one before that, Tokyo.
It would have been Tokyo, I think.
Going through my alphabet in my head.
Yes, but alphabet backwards is always a challenge. No, I think it was Tokyo.
Yeah, I think it was a little more of a challenge. So, it's been an additional year. So now I have a year under my belt at ServiceNow. Prior to that, I worked for a couple of different customers. I've been in the ServiceNow ecosystem for at least 12 or 13 years at this point. I've lost count. So
I joined before the alphabet began.
I did. I can't even remember my first release. I know it was like winter of 2010 or 2009 or something. How sad is that?
I think it's amazing.
And all that time, I have been an admin and a developer, a product owner, an architect, you name it, I've done it. So yeah, I'm happy to get to talk about Vancouver. I love talking about all the new things that we're doing.
Yeah, me too. That's awesome. All right, so quickly about myself. My name is Lisa Hohenstein. I'm an outbound product manager for the Now platform. My main focus and area of expertise is the workflow automation suite of products that I'll get to address in just a couple of minutes. I live in Germany, so it's 6 p.m. for me and probably earlier for some of you and maybe later for a couple of other people joining us. I have been with ServiceNow for 4.5 years now, going on 5 years early next year. I'm very excited about this. And this is, I think, my first release on the platform as a customer was Helsinki. We started working in Helsinki and we implemented in Istanbul, and that was when I started. So, and with that, we'll head into a few things. So this slide is more or less obsolete, although we might hint at things that may be coming in later releases, maybe future store releases, or the Washington release, which will be coming next year. So please don't make any purchasing decisions if we do mention future features or things. As always, this is one of several Platform Academy series. We have different series in our portfolio, and I want to encourage you to go check them out because all of them are doing sessions on what's new in Vancouver, and there are some really, really interesting things. The red box will highlight where we are right now. Today, we're talking about what's new on the Now platform. In 2 weeks, in this same webinar, we will be talking about the creator workflows additions in Vancouver. And then we'll start with a quick poll. We want to know, as we do for every release academy that we have, what is the release that your production instance is currently on? And then second, how often do you upgrade? And while this poll runs, I will start outlining what we'll talk about today. Our agenda will cover workflow automation. That's obviously me. That's my topic. I love it. It's awesome. Workflow automation is my favorite thing on the platform because it drives everything on the platform. So I will talk you through the awesome additions within Flow Designer, Process Automation Designer, and Decision Builder. And we have some really, really interesting stuff this year. I promise you, you have not seen these things before, and especially some of those features have been long asked by a lot of customers. And then I will hand it over to Paige, who will talk you through upgrades and updates, search, features, some other random cool stuff, and then also some bonus content, of course. Because what would be a release without some Gen AI fun? We do want to refer you to the corresponding Gen AI academies for more specific content, but we will talk about some cool stuff here for admins and developers. And the first section is Flow Designer. Flow Designer, as you all know, is our base workflow engine that we have in the Now platform. And with the Vancouver release, we are bringing a bunch of awesome Flow Designer quality of life enhancements. And one of the things is very simple and straightforward. We have updated the design for our new colors. It's been time, but it's happening now in Vancouver. And I think it looks really pretty. Second of all, and this is really big, we have improved performance by a bunch. So there's a thing that we internally call our Flow Engine version 2. What we have done is rework some of the API calls that have been happening behind the scenes that made certain aspects of Flow Designer load a lot slower. So some of these API calls have been removed completely. Some of these have been reworked, and we have optimized the whole execution, but also load time of flows and Flow Designer. And some of the numbers are really staggering. So there's, for example, a 60% reduction in load time, that is loading up a flow when you open Flow Designer, a 98% reduction in time to add subflows to flows, and an amazing 99% logic optimization in time reduction. One of the improvements is the new Flow Designer homepage. And now you can see there's a new list, new design. You have the pick where you left off on the right side. You have the flow execution metrics that can be extended. There will be some reports, so you can pick up on those long-running flows. And then in the bottom, you can also see recent activity by other people. And there's a very quick filter over here where you can filter flows by your work and all work. More quality of life enhancements. So besides the performance improvements that we just talked about and the theming changes, we have also simplified the flow reporting levels. So before, I think it was like 5 levels. Now we went down to 3 levels. And then in the same vein with the performance enhancements, we have also improved the performance enhancements for reporting. So you I think you should get away with having reporting on or execution details for your flows on for more of your flows on your production instance. So it will be easier to debug those flows as they happen in your productive environment. Second, subflows. Subflows are amazing, but they hadn't been supported in diagramming, for example, and we have now added that. You can edit inputs and outputs in the subflow in the diagramming view, and we also enabled stages in subflows, which is really handy for those service catalog flows. So now you can have your approvals in subflows better. You can have your catalog item fulfillment in subflows better because you can also map those stages in subflows and have the stages in diagramming as well. And then the last one, in the Utah release, we added the option to see related flows from flow actions so that when you published changes to a flow action, you would get a pop-up that tells you where this action is being used, or you could open that from the 3 dots in the top right. This is now also available for subflows, which is so handy because you always want to know where these things are being used and how many other artifacts you're impacting with your changes. The good part about this is, even if you don't have access to other subflows, if you can't see the details or the names of those subflows, it'll still give you a small indicator in the bottom of it that there are others that you can't see because you don't have the permissions, but you know that other flows and subflows could be impacted. So that's really handy. The last part about this starting homepage is that on the that's not included on the screenshot. On the very bottom of the right column, there's also a box with a bunch of links for resources around Flow Designer and subflows and decisions and so on. So that'll take you to relevant docs, and it'll also take you to my Center of Excellence. I think. I've seen that on a test instance, so I'll have to make sure that link is there. All right, before we move on, let us look at the results of the poll. And I think I really like what I'm seeing. What do you think, Paige? People
I
are
agree.
really up to date, right?
Yep. Yep. I remember when it was pretty common to only upgrade once a year, and it seems like that is becoming less and less common. So it's great
That's
to see.
amazing. Yeah. And also that almost everyone, 97% are within the last 2 releases. And that is really what we were hoping to achieve with our changes and people getting access to those new features quicker and quicker. So that's amazing. Good results. Thank you so much. All right, let's head over. This is another quality of life thing. It seems minor. It is so amazing. So prior to Vancouver, if you clicked the wrong thing when you added a data pill, you had to remove it and navigate through the whole thing again. That is no longer necessary. You can now just click the data pill and the same modal will open again and you can change it to a different field. Silent applause, silent applause. It's a tiny thing, but these things make your life so much easier when creating flows.
They also
works.
add up. They add up pretty quickly. Those
Yes.
small things. So
Yes. This is also available in diagramming. Next up, and I think there's even a developer advocate session about this. So I will also link to the COE later. I have already snagged all of the links from the developer advocate content, that is live coding happy hours, creator toolbox, and all of the good things, and added them to my center of excellence. So I highly encourage you to go there and check out their content about all these amazing features. And one of the features that was added for Vancouver for Flow Designer is that there is an improved way to create dynamic inputs for subflows and also actions. So this sounds complicated and it's not 100% easy to do, but it's very, very valuable because this allows you to have to dynamically generate required inputs. So for example, you can look up data in a table with a specific condition, and then those choices will be available inputs for a subflow, for example. And that could be things like catalog variables. So this feature enables a range of capabilities that we want to add to Process Automation Designer, for example, to better support cases with having decision tables, using the inputs, querying the inputs of decision tables, or for catalog items and their variables and these kinds of scenarios. So this is a really, really handy feature, quite an advanced thing, but very, very useful. And with that, we'll get to our first AI thing. I was wondering how long it would take us to talk about AI, an AI feature, and it was 20 minutes.
I don't think it's a ServiceNow presentation anymore without something about Gen AI.
That's true. That's true. So the first thing that we're bringing to you in Flow Designer, and I said first because there will be more in the future. The first thing is called Now Assist Recommendation, which is a really long way to say, hey, you added maybe a lookup records. Your next step will probably be a for each because you will always want, or almost always want to iterate through those records that you looked up with the lookup records. And that is just one of many, many use cases where this feature will be helpful. So we have trained this model on a bunch of instances, and we will be continuing to train this. And I believe there are also plans to make that available for the customers at some point in the future. This is a very safe harbor statement, but of course, this feature will be a lot more useful if it is trained on your own flows and your own design guidelines, right? So this feature will be improved in accuracy as so while you're using it, the further down within a flow you are, the more precise the next recommendations will be. So it is best to have like 2 or 3 actions in your flow already, And then it'll really start picking up while you're building out your longer flows. So this will speed up your time, adding the right flow logic, adding the right actions that you're probably going to be using next. So the next one. First, I have to put out a small disclaimer. This feature is currently in limited access. So this is not turned on automatically when you upgrade to Vancouver. So just so you're aware, don't expect this to be there right away. We're introducing Go Back to in Flow Designer. This is a heavily requested feature. One of the things that have been requested for the longest time, as long as I can remember, and Flow Designer has been around, is that it allows you, under certain conditions, not all of the jumps are viable options, but it does allow you to go back within your logic. And this will show within the linear view, but it also, and even better, show in the diagram view to help you build those processes where you just have to go back to an earlier step. If, for example, an approval has not been given and you have to go back, edit some data and resubmit the same request with the same request number and so on. So this is an amazing feature. I'm already seeing starry eyes in chat, and I can absolutely empathize with that. So expect this to the current plan, and this is again a safe harbor statement. Expect this to be available to everyone in an upcoming family release. We hope for Washington. That may change, but spaghetti flows incoming. Yes, that is of course a danger. So tread carefully. Use this wisely. Great power will be bestowed on you. Use it wisely.
At least you can't move the boxes wherever you want, like you can in workflow. So
that is true. You cannot create a stack of actions and never know what happens, right? Flow auto arranges that for you.
Cross all the lines together so you can't.
That was Flow Designer. I think that's awesome. Those are some really great things and additions, and especially also features that have been asked for a lot. So let me get to a couple of questions. So one of the questions, is it still recommended to limit flows to 50 actions, or can we increase that with a new flow engine? I don't know. I will find out if that recommendation changes with the new flow engine. However, I think 50 also makes flows really hard to read a lot of times. So I would always suggest to work with subflows to containerize logic or flow parts that belong together and make them reusable. And if you find you're creating large flows like this that have 50 actions or more, you should take a look at my good friend Process Automation Designer, because those sound like really large processes and more complex workflows. And I think those should be in Process Automation Designer in the first place. Second question, is Flow Assist, so GenAI, enabled by default in all instances after upgrading? I don't think so. This will be a store app. I will encourage you to reach out to your account team and ask them. And or the GenAI Academy might address that. It's definitely not enabled by default. It is a plugin, that store app that needs to be installed. All right, then let's head over to Process Automation Designer. My other favorite thing on the platform, besides Flow Designer and Decision Builder, of course. We have added some nice quality of life enhancements for Process Automation Designer when you're using it from AES. So there is now a better way to create and manage processes from App Engine Studio. We might hear more about that in 2 weeks when I have my friends Kiernan and Joe with us to talk about the App Engine and Creator Workflows news. Process Automation Designer has been migrated to a store app, so I will recommend from future releases on to always check your store apps for upgrades as well here. So one of the biggest things ever coming to Process Automation Designer, similar to Flow Designer, we have added diagramming. It is so pretty. Look at it. It's awesome. We can now look at our complex processes in the diagram view, and we can better understand when our stages are running in parallel or after another, or whether the activity is run at the same time or not. if they're in parallel or dependent on another one. And I think our designers have done a great job to visualize these things, especially with the different types of activities that you can find in a process, whether it's a placeholder for the new activity that you can see here, whether it's an instruction, a wait for, a record, a list of records. So these icons represent different types of activities that you can find in a process. And then we will also enhance and iterate on that in coming releases. And there are also some really cool things coming here. But I think the most important part is it is so much easier to grasp what this process is doing when you have a visual thing. And similar, again, to the flow designer, a flow diagramming, there will be an option to print it. So from the diagram view, you can hit the print button and it will export an image for you of your process and what it looks like. So make sure to give speaking titles to your activities and stages so that everybody knows what's happening right away. There will be more improvements to this view, and I'm really excited to share them with you in about 6 months' time. Process Automation Designer would not be complete without the playbook experience side to it. And one of our own business units, that is field service management, is working hard on bringing the playbook experience to the mobile app. So in this case, especially for field service management, they will be able to work their playbooks from their mobile app, which is really, really useful. This is a wrapper, and you can also use this from your custom apps, I think, or if you have custom mobile apps, you should be able to use this controller. But we will also be working with our business units to bring this to more products. And then for process automation administration, some useful things, it is now possible to much more easily cancel a playbook or cancel it from either the process execution or from the playbook. And there will be more options here as well. So we will be adding more of these administration capabilities in future updates. So much for playbook. All right, I can see everybody is very excited about the process additions. So I really hope you will also like the additions that we bring to Decision Builder, which is my next favorite. I will say that about all the workflow automation products because they are. So Decision Builder, for those that don't know it, Decision Builder helps you create decision tables to decouple complex decisions from your flows, subflows, or even processes. And the great benefit of this is that you can hand over the decision editing to other developers or process owners. So if there are any decision makers that want to change the threshold when you need an approval for a catalog item from $1,000 to $2,000, right now you would have to go and change the flow logic, or maybe use a system property, or something or other that process owner will not get access to. If you use Decision Builder instead, you can either give very specific access to a whole decision table, to only the rows of a decision table, or even only to the result columns of a decision table to your process owners. And again, there's even a better version or another version to hand over decision ownership to people who don't even want to use ServiceNow. You can export decision tables to Excel, edit them in the Excel, and then re-upload them to make the changes, which is really handy for those people who have to work with people that are not ServiceNow developers in any way. Speaking of, we have heard your asks to be able to put filters on reference tables. So whenever you have a reference table in either your inputs or your result columns, you maybe don't want to give all of the groups, all of the locations, all of the users to those process owners when they have to edit those tables. Maybe you just want to choose from a selected few kinds of groups or whatever your reference table is. Now you can add reference filter conditions, and these will also apply when you export the decision table to Excel. So you don't see all of the options in there. And then second, the same goes for choice lists. You can now use and reuse existing choice lists, so you don't have to recreate them for every decision table that you want to use. Very handy, if you ask me. And the next great thing is testing. It is so simple but amazing. You can now test your decision table. You can decide what to test, whether it's a draft or the published version. We'll get to that in a second. You can decide how to execute it, whether you want to return the first decision that matches or all of the decisions that match. We'll get to choose from different from the inputs and then hit the test button and get a result. That's all. And it doesn't even create records like the test button does in Flow Designer. It's a pure display. Speaking of draft and publishing, Decision Builder now has a draft mode, which is awesome. So anytime you create a new decision table or you have an existing one, you can go to the properties of the decision table and enable draft mode. This will allow you to create a new draft, save the draft, test, and compare the view of the draft or the published view. You can do that with that toggle up here, so you can switch back and forth between the two. And then you can also publish it. And once you published, then it will be available for execution on your instance. And it is so amazing. I think this is so useful. It sounds small. It was big to implement, and it will be improved in the future with more capabilities like better versioning and so on. So I think this is an amazing feature. Be sure to go to your store apps and update the Decision Builder app. I think we're at a good place to see if there are any more questions before I give this over to Paige. Okay, there's one question coming in. Will Decision Builder have versioning? So we're internally referring to draft mode as versioning version 1. So do with that what you want. I think I can hand it over to Paige.
Alrighty. Okay, so the first thing is the redesigned application manager. You know, there was a small but significant change made in Utah to the existing application manager. Hopefully you all noticed, but there were major performance improvements made to that page. So it looked the same, but when you went to it, it went a lot faster. Now with Vancouver, you know, we've continued to improve upon that, and it's got a whole new look and feel. It obviously matches the rest of the platform, but there are some other enhancements to it as well. It's meant to be easier for your admins and your developers to actually make decisions, see what they need to do, things of that nature. So as you can see in the screenshot, your apps have been categorized. So you now have apps that are available for you, so things that you're licensed for, apps that have updates to them, and then apps that have been installed on your instance. You also see kind of in the top right-hand corner, there's a sync button. So that goes back to those improvements and those performance improvements that I mentioned. One of the ways that page was improved was, instead of every time you open the page, it would go check in with the store to update. Now it's no longer doing that. It does do it on a regular basis, but it's not doing it every time you open the page. But you can force it to check in with the store using that button. But it is a much faster load. I used to be able to go click the button and like go get a drink or something. So
yeah, it was so slow.
It was very slow.
It was so slow.
So one of the next improvements is when you actually go into an application. So now you get a lot more information about that application. You're pulling information that you would normally have to go to the store to see. So not only do you kind of get a little bit of information about what the app is and what it's called and how to install it, but you're now seeing pricing, ratings, if there are any from the store, features and dependencies, if there's a custom table count, what it's compatible with, and then release notes, which most of those are at the bottom of these screenshots. But if you scroll, you keep getting more and more information. You can also see kind of the helpful resources that were on the right-hand side. And that's just links to docs and stores and everything of that nature. One more add on that, back on the page that we were on, you don't have to go back because you can't see it anyway, but once you've actually installed that application, down towards the bottom, there's also additional information on what was actually installed, so log files for the installation. And then once your file's updated, it also has like the changes and what's been skipped. So you get all of that update information and just everything that was in the app, all in one nice, easy to find place.
And then you can also, and that was installed a couple of releases earlier, I think, is you can install later. So you can just schedule those and
Yeah.
decide you want to install them on the weekend.
Yeah. Or in your change release window. So you don't have to actually have someone there like clicking the button. On the topic of installing, one other thing you can do now is you can actually stack your installation. So you no longer have to wait for one app to install to start queuing up the next one. You can queue up several apps and they will just, once it's completed, it will start the next app in queue. And of course, you can see kind of the status of all of that.
This is so cool. I found this in the release notes and I think this is so handy.
That it is really cool. I actually didn't find out about it until you mentioned it. And then I went and looked at it and I was like, that is amazing. I wish I had that when, I maintained an instance. So these are skipped record rules. If any of you have ever had to deal with skipped records for an upgrade, you know that there are some that you obviously want to deal with, but there are some that you skip, or like with business rules that you've inactivated that are out of the box, you might go and revert them and then go back to that business rule and deactivate it again, just so that you're keeping it up to date, but you don't actually want it to run. You can now make rules that will do those things automatically for you. So you can see in one of the examples here on the screen, it does exactly that. If there's an inactive business rule, I'm just going to go ahead and revert that for you, but then I'm going to deactivate it again. And you can set all of that based on conditions. The other one that I think about as an example is notifications. Because I regularly would, most companies, they change their notifications from out of the box because they want it to look like it comes from their company. But I did not necessarily want the updates that were coming all the time. So it just automatically will go ahead and do whatever you want it to do with that selection of records.
Yeah, one thing that stuck in my mind from being an admin was related lists and form views.
Yeah, and form views.
I would always skip those.
Yep, I intentionally made a change to that form. Thank you. But it does kind of amaze me because, obviously I've been on the platform for quite some time, and upgrades way back, your skipped upgrade record list was massive, and we've just done a lot to minimize that over the years. So upgrades will get faster. Were there
I think I remember
questions?
one cool thing right here, the option to assign skipped records to a user.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But that is also awesome. So you can select conditions. Maybe you have someone that always deals with your service portal stuff. You can send all of the service portal type records to that individual. That is something I used to have to do manually. I would go through and I'm like, the security stuff goes to this person, portal stuff goes to me. And it was a pain.
It was.
So that is exciting. I would be so happy as the person running our upgrade.
We do see a lot of love for this feature in chat too.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't feel like it's a much talked about feature, but it's great. All right. So search. I will probably fly through these a little quickly, just so you all are aware. I am not an AI search expert, but there have been some updates that have been made to search. So this first one, now whenever you're searching for attachments, you have the option within the search configuration to show attachments as, underneath their parent record. So in the past, it would just show the attachments, but now, as you can see in the screenshot, it's showing them underneath the records, which gives you an association between those attachments and their parent records. So you get a better idea of what those return results are really for. So another small update is adding tab count indicators. You get a number that tells you how many knowledge items, how many catalog items, et cetera, for each search source. So that you can more easily see what results have been returned. And then it also grays out things that don't have any search results. So you don't have to worry about clicking on a tab that doesn't have anything for you to see.
That sounds very handy.
I feel like Vancouver is the release of a lot of small changes, small but important changes.
We just want to make all of your lives easier, as well as ours.
Yeah. So the next one is a feature that admins can flip within the search facet configuration. So now an additional type has been added for multi-select or. And so what that means is that when you select that, as you can see on the right-hand side here, it changes that search category into a checkbox group. And so they can select multiple ones. So now instead of saying it's software and it's hardware, you're saying it's software or it's hardware. There's also some data validation on that. So you can't do that for things like dates. If you try to, the system will scream at you. So this is the final thing. There are some new options for service portal theming. As you can see there, just the ability to theme a couple of additional sections within your search results so that you can align to your branding.
Yay, branding. Make it pretty.
All right.
Random cool stuff. My
Right.
favorite category. Everything that did not fit in any of the above.
I like the name. So all right, so there's a new data type. In the past, if you wanted to integrate with something like a map, you had to basically create two different fields to hold your latitude and your longitude. Now you've only got to capture that in one field, and that's the GeoPoint data type. So again, small but significant changes. You know, I keep saying this is my favorite thing about the Vancouver release. So I seem to have a lot of favorites, but the Access Analyzer, anyone that has ever been an admin or a dev in a ServiceNow instance, I'm sure has had to deal with, hey, so this person has, all the same groups as me, but I can't do the same things that they're doing. Why not? And how long it takes to sit there and dig through the why not? What permissions did they get 2 years ago that aren't logged anywhere? And so this is a store app that will allow you to basically select a user or group and see what they're able to access, why they're able to access it. So it'll give you a breakdown of kind of their access control rules. I mean, it's just really neat. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see what else they do with it in the future too.
I think it's really amazing. We'll have to do a new academy on how to
use
secure
it.
access then. We did one earlier this year with Paige and Jared, and we had a lot of fun talking about ACLs and how to use them properly. And this will help you debug them better.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, you'll definitely have to do that. Learn how to use it.
So much applause in chat, and very well deserved. Once you've tried it, I think it's even better than you expect. It looks already awesome from the screenshots, but using it, and I think one of the handy things that you have here is if you go to a form, you can just right click and say analyze access and then choose the user for which you want to look at it. It's amazing. No more need to impersonate all the time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. The number of times I've had like multiple windows open and one incognito and one. All right. So obviously one more thing. We couldn't close this out without talking about Gen AI one more time.
We can. No.
So text to code. I'm sure that some of you have heard about it, but we'll give you a little more information. Right now, again, it is limited availability. You're not going to find it in your PDI or anything, but I hear rumor that may not be true for much longer, hopefully. But once it's activated in your instance, the first time you go to a script field, this is what you're going to see. And it basically just tells you how to use it. Once you know how to use it, it's pretty simple.
It also is very simple.
It is. Though I do appreciate the guided tour, because the first time I went into it, I was, I don't know what I'm supposed to, I didn't get the pop-up because of course, they were still testing things and I did not know how to use it. So I appreciated the pop-up. Basically, it gives you the ability to use, natural language to ask for something. So in this case, you want all active P1 incidents that are grouped by assignment group and then return an object. Once you type that in on a Windows machine, you just hit Control Enter, and on a Mac, it's just Command Enter, and then it will generate code for you. And then if we flip to the next screen, let's see what it generated with that prompt. So as you can tell, this is not necessarily saved again yet. It gives you an opportunity to look over the code. You can decide whether or not that's actually what you're looking for. If it's not, you can just hit delete to escape and maybe retry your prompt. But if it is, then you just hit tab and it goes ahead and drops that into your script field. The results, I mean, they're pretty accurate. It's using glide record and glide aggregate appropriately. Obviously, when you're doing this, you still have to look it over and make sure that it functions appropriate like it's supposed to. And I think it's great for simple scripts, but even for more complex ones, for me, I see it as a starting point. Give me the basics and I will take it from there. So I find that pretty exciting too. It's kind of like the old the UI macros, I think.
Code macros, like
Syntax
just
macros.
vargr tab and then get
Yeah.
some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Only, a little more complex. It gives you more than just the basic shell. So
Yeah.
um,
So there are a few caveats. So obviously, a lot of us have been playing with this on our internal instances and working with it. It's not always perfect, but it's getting better and better as you use it, and it will learn from, I think, the generated code that you accept, or if you click it away. So it does get some pointers from how you're using it. If you want it to use specific, say, script includes, the model doesn't necessarily know your script includes, your utils, your helpers. So that will not always work 100%. But it is great to get like a leg up for your coding. However, I mean, all of you are probably aware that we do encourage you to use our low-code tools over coding. But if you are creating, for example, your custom flow actions, that is something that we're working on to bring to you in future applications and future updates, is that this text-to-code option is available when you write your own custom actions in Flow Designer with a script step. That is currently not in place yet. So this text to code is not yet available in all of the script fields on on the platform, but by and by we will extend that. And then also we will extend our Gen AI capabilities going forward. So as you can imagine, this is a big push for ServiceNow. So we're of course bringing Gen AI not just to coding, but to other spaces as well. It's always a good idea to follow the AI Academy for news and updates. But we're working on bringing more capabilities to loads of other places in the platform and not just coding. So just putting that out there. We do want to encourage you to use, of course, Flow Designer over business rules. However, Flow Designer does not work in the before context. So if you're writing before query business rules, text to code can help you. I think we're ready for more questions, and I will, while that runs, start the second poll for this. And we want to know, what was your favorite feature? So let's get it to us. If it's not listed, post it in chat. And I will.
Glad you're not asking me that.
Well, the good part is it's multiple choice. You can vote for multiple things because I could not pick one thing.
No, I couldn't either.
So questions. There are questions and answers. Will text to code suggest code efficiency, if not now, in the future? I'm not sure about code optimization, but it does code completion. So you can not only start from a command prompt, you can have a command and the start of your code, like a couple of lines, and when you hit Control Enter, from the point where the cursor is, everything before the cursor will be looked at, and then it'll suggest something for you. So I cannot tell you if optimizing code is on the roadmap, but it does sound like a good idea. So let's quickly catch up on the two questions in chat in the Q&A. Brad Tilton, who is the product manager for UI Builder. Does text to code work in UI Builder? Not at the moment, but we're looking at it. That sounds amazing. I'm sure that's in the UI Builder Academy as well. And then for Decision Builder, if this hasn't been used before, it is easy to retrofit existing items. So if you have used decision tables before, those will show in Decision Builder. And for other things, I think you may have to look at your flows and rework some of those if-then else's into decision tables then. All right, so we got that out of the way. It is, I think we're on time. It is 7 p.m. over here. So I will let you go with this last slide and the results of the poll. I will highly encourage you to go to the other academies, watch their Vancouver content, find out what's new for AI, next experience, mobile, analytics, and of course, VA with conversational interfaces. So there's a bunch of awesome stuff out there, amazing additions to all of those products. And I'm really happy to see that the Flow Designer upgrades, the redesigned application manager, so upgrades and updates, improvements, and access analyzers, as well as text to code are your favorites. I totally agree. And with that, I hope to see you in the other academies. Thank you so much, Paige, for joining me today and talking us through the Vancouver improvements. I hope to
Thank
see you all in 2 weeks when we will be talking with Kiernan and Joe about creator workflows. All right, so thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, a lovely rest of your week, and then be sure to check out the other academies and wait for the resources on the community. Have a good one. Bye-bye.